Good morning, and thank you for joining us for this special Periscope video behind-the-scenes look at CAL FIRE's aviation management. We're here at McClellan Air Park, which is in Sacramento County, which is where all of our aircraft come to be serviced and maintained. With over 50 aircraft, including helicopters, air tankers, and air attack planes. There's a lot of aircraft here, and as you can see behind me, these are just some of the air attack planes that will quickly start to be dispatched out into our aviation bases throughout the state, and will be fighting wildfire before you know it. I'm joined here by our Chief of Flight Operations Pilot and Aviation expert, Dennis Brown. Dennis, talk to us a little bit about the facility here at McClellan.
Okay, well, this facility is our aviation management unit. We call it AMU, and this is our maintenance hub. And so all of the aircraft are deployed out to other bases during the course of the fire season, but they all recover back to here during the winter to get their heavy maintenance done. And so that's why there's so many on the ramp right now, is they're getting that heavy maintenance or annual inspection type work done. And so we'll get all of the aircraft that we have out in the state back here one time or another during the year, or if we're doing a 200-hour inspection if it's a busy fire season or something like that.
Now, a lot of people don't realize just how large CAL FIRE's air fleet is and how it's actually the largest wildland air fleet in the world, but a lot goes in behind the scenes here to make sure that these planes are ready to fly every single fire season.
That's correct. Just our fixed wing program, or our airplanes, if you will. We have 41 airplanes between our air tankers, our air attacks, and our 2 King Airs and a Baron admin aircraft. And then in addition to that, we have 12 helicopters. So certainly a lot of aircraft that we have, and with that, we have approximately 90 contract mechanics that are working on those aircraft. Most of them are here during the wintertime, and then during the summertime fire season, we have them, individuals go out and become base mechanics, and they'll be at the different bases that we have statewide to keep the aircraft up and going at the bases.
Great. Maybe if we pan over here, show some of the air tankers. Talk to us a little bit about this aircraft. And if you do have questions, you can always comment and let us know, and we'll be happy to answer them. But we're looking now at our S2 Air Tankers. Talk to us a little bit about those aircraft.
Okay, these are Turbine S2t Air Tankers. They're 1,200-gallon retardant capability of those aircraft. They have 2 turboprop engines on them, and so they're a very high performance aircraft. They're fairly fast, give good power for us for what we need to do as far as carrying a heavy load into deep canyons and things like that. And so if we were to have a problem with an engine or something, the other engine is, especially if we get rid of the load, is capable of getting the pilots back out of trouble and out of that hole. So
now all these aircraft are military aircraft. Talk to us a little bit about these. These air tankers were actually owned by the Navy at one time. What was their role in their first line of service?
These were actually aircraft carrier-based aircraft. They were on aircraft carriers and were sub-hunters. And so they would go out and actually had armament and would basically look for and search and destroy subs was their primary mission. Obviously, what we use them for is slightly different, but the same type of robust type of an airframe that serves us well for the same as they would on an aircraft carrier.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Now, somebody asked us how many smoke jumpers fly out of these planes, but obviously these are air tanker planes just carrying retardant. None of these aircraft actually carry a crew. The Forest Service, though, has several aircraft that use smoke jumpers, but not out of these. If we pan a little bit more to the left, now we've got the line of air attack planes. Dennis, talk to us a little bit about these planes. What is their role in firefighting mission?
Well, the OV-10 Bronco is an ex-Vietnam era type aircraft. Most of these are late 60s vintage aircraft that we got from excess property through the federal government. And they're essentially a command and control platform that is the center of what's going on out there over a fire on the fire scene. Their primary responsibility is the safety of all the airborne assets. They keep the separation between the helicopters and the other air tankers and that type of stuff, but they're also a direct link to the ground for meeting the objectives of the incident commander on the ground with the aerial assets.
So they're really the air controller from the air then?
Yeah, very, very much so, an air traffic controller, but also an airborne incident commander, if you will, in that they are setting the tactical priorities they're getting the objectives from the the ground, and then they're setting the tactical priorities of what's the best way to meet those and such. And it's a very similar mission to what they performed in Vietnam, and that they were used as a forward air controller, or a FAC they were called, and where they were used to provide close support for ground units with aircraft. And so if there was a ground force that needed help, these would be the coordinating and controlling aircraft that would bring in fighters or helicopters for rescues or to give support to the ground troops. So real similar.
Okay, now we're going to quiz your knowledge. Somebody asked, how much fuel do these aircraft use on a daily basis? Now, obviously, that depends on missions and whatnot, but do you have any information about how much fuel these aircraft are using?
Yeah, it varies. They all of the aircraft we've talked about so far use Jet A aircraft. They don't use gasoline, but they use jet engine fuel. And it really depends on the role that they're performing. If you take off in an air tanker fully loaded and keep it at high power and go for a couple hours, it's probably burning about 550 pounds per engine, so close to 1,100 pounds an hour, somewhere in that neighborhood. If you pull back the power into cruise, it'll drop to about 450 pounds. If you're out over a fire and in a loiter mode waiting to drop, it's going to be somewhat less than that. Yeah. The OV-10s, it's the same type of scenario. You can be up to about 350 pounds an hour approximately if you have the power way up. But out over a fire, we have the power pulled back to, generally we're burning less than 200 pounds per engine, or 400 pounds an hour, somewhere in that neighborhood.
Okay. If we can spin around, Dennis, and we'll walk a little bit here as we kind of show some of the maintenance that's going on here. But a couple questions that folks have asked, how much time is left on these airframes? Again, these are military aircraft, but talk a little bit about the work that's done here by the crew to make sure that these aircraft, are highly maintained and are in great, pristine condition.
Well, I really feel, I fly these airplanes, so I have all the confidence in the world from our maintenance support group here. We have very skilled maintenance folks, and these airplanes are not unlike older cars. Is if you maintain them well, you take care of them, they can last a long time. And what ends up happening is the components time out, the propellers or the engines, and you have to have them overhauled and taken care of and stuff. But the aircraft themselves, as long as you don't have a corrosion issue or fatigue issue in the airframe, we can keep running, and you can get parts, so you can keep running these things for a long, long time.
Now, the FAA has actually awarded CAL FIRE several awards for the maintenance that's going on back here. Talk a little bit about that award and what it means that the FAA has given us.
Okay, and it's kind of given for our program to DynCorp, which is our primary contractor for our maintenance, all of our mechanics, and all of our fixed-wing pilots. And so the Diamond Award is just that we, as a group, DynCorp and CAL FIRE, have met all of the requirements and training for all of our employees for on the maintenance side of the house, and have continued to do that. So we're very proud of that record, that our mechanics complete all of that training and keep that up to date and move forward with that. But the Diamond Award is only presented, I think there's 2 that have been presented in the last couple of years, besides to DynCorp here in Northern California.
So it's a pretty prestigious award then, that really goes to show the hard work these men and women are doing to make sure those aircraft can fight fire every single summer. Absolutely.
And they do a lot of work, and depending on the particular aircraft that you're dealing with, the amount of work that is done may take as maybe from 3 weeks up to a month for an annual inspection, or it could be a couple months if we're doing a complete rewire, avionics upgrade, that type of upgrade for the aircraft. And we have those ongoing all the time, where we try and standardize the fleet and keep them going, but you obviously can't do the whole fleet at one time.
Now, when these aircraft came to us after they left their military mission, the propellers and the engines were upgraded. Talk a little bit about that, and one of the questions somebody had was, why aren't we using jet engines on these aircraft?
Well, the thing that with these aircraft, it was quite a process to get them upgraded to a turboprop engine versus a radial engine, which would for most people would be what they're used to in a car as a piston engine aircraft. Turbine engines are much more dependable, and so what we have with these aircraft is a turbine engine that drives a propeller. The advantage to that for us is the propeller gives a lot quicker response as far as performance, and when you when you push the power forward, you get a lot quicker response with a propeller. If it was just a jet engine, a turbine engine, you'd have a certain delay in spool up time and that. And there are jet air tankers out there flying, and they're very successful at that. But you can't. You got to give up something to get something, basically. And so we're happy with the turboprop aircraft that we have because of the responsiveness that we get out of them.
Now, these aircraft belong to us here in California. They're CAL FIRE's aircraft. Somebody asked, do they ever go out of state? And I know we've assisted with some fires along the border of Nevada, but these aircraft are primarily for the fire mission here in California, where the Forest Service provides a lot of aircraft, not only here in California, but the other rest of the states in the U.S.
That's correct. And, primarily the citizens of California's taxes are what's paying for this program. And so we will go out of state a certain distance, and there's not a set distance for that. It depends on, the improvements at risk and that kind of stuff for a fire, other resources that are available out there. But we won't send them to Colorado. We won't send them overnight to work an out-of-state fire. They're California's assets, and so we keep them that way.
Now, I know in this hangar we're primarily looking at the air tankers and the air attack OV-10 Bronco, but we do have helicopters that are maintained here. Talk a little bit about that helicopter program that we have.
Okay, we have 12 helicopters in our fleet. We've got 10 that are actually staffed at bases, and we have 2 spares. And the reason for that is because the helicopter maintenance, every 100 hours, they have to come back in here for maintenance, and so we'll send the spare out there and keep that crew up and going at a heli-attack base. And so that's why the reason for the spares. But those aircraft are, like the rest of our fixed-wing fleet, are distributed throughout the state. They have a heli-attack crew that are on that aircraft every day, and they are a very effective initial attack tool for fires. They can get out there, land, get their crew on the ground very quickly, hook up a bucket, or use the fixed tank on the helicopter and support that crew. They also all have hoists, and so they're hoist capable, which means they can actually pluck an injured firefighter primarily, or if there's no other resources available, they can actually be used if the situation warrants it to get a private citizen out of a spot if they're injured or have had a heart attack, something like that. So the hoist allows them to pick somebody up from about 250 feet and bring them into the aircraft.
Great. Now, already, here in California, we've had 4 years of continued drought, and we've had some recent rain, which has been great. But, already this year, we've responded to over 425 wildfires. These aircraft soon will be hitting their air bases, moving throughout the air bases across California. How important, though, is the work right now that's being done to quickly get them out into the field?
It's critical because these aircraft can't go out in the field until they have their annual maintenance done. And because of the drought situation and keeping the bases open longer in the fall, it delays us getting started with that maintenance, in the late fall, early winter. And so we're pushing to get ahead or back even with getting these aircraft out. Fortunately, the north got a pretty good amount of rain this year, and so that fire season, at least the start of it, is looking like it's going to be kind of normal dates. We have already started Hemet and Ramona in the far south. Those bases are active with aircraft and pilots now because of the continued drought conditions that they have down there. And so as things continue to warm up, dry up, we'll have to see. But hopefully we'll be able to stay on top of it and get these aircraft turned out by their due dates.
Now, somebody asked, are these aircraft set up for fire retardant only or for water as well? What's the primary, use for these aircraft?
We use long-term fire retardant only out of these. They certainly can drop water, and we drop a lot of water out of them for training purposes. But in reality, water is much harder to get to the ground out of these aircraft because it drifts so much more than a retardant that holds together. It has a higher viscosity and holds together to the ground and easier to predict in wind conditions and stuff. Plus, the long-term retardant, you may think that we're dropping it right on the fire to put that fire out, but it's really just what it says, a retardant. And ideally, we're dropping it just right on the very leading edge of the flames, and it coats the fuels, and it actually retards the spread through chemical reaction. When heat starts affecting those coated fuels and stuff, it basically carbonizes that fuel, and it'll retard it. It won't put it out. We still have to have ground firefighters there, dozers, things like that to put it out. In most cases, very rarely you'll put one out with a retardant. But you do have that long-term effect. Actually, even after everything dries, a few days or even a week afterwards, you still have those retardant effects from the retardant.
What is that retardant made out of?
It's been a product in development for 40 years, and the product we're using now is I believe it's an ammonium phosphate based product, and it basically is as environmentally friendly as we can get it. The coloring in it, the red color, is basically just for us so that the person in the OV-10 Bronco, the air attack, can identify where the last drop ended and the next drop needs to start and that type of stuff. But the chemical composition of that is all, of course, protected by the vendor and that type of stuff, but essentially that's what you've got in those products.
I don't know if you know the answer to this question we've had, but how much of the aircraft has been equipped with ADS-B transponders?
We have ADS-B capable transponders in them right now, and they have the capability for ADS-B out for most of the fleet, but we're in the process of where we're going to go as far as to completely meet the ADS-B requirements that are coming on us pretty quick. But the transponders we have in them now are capable of doing that. So.
Now, these aircraft are equipped, though, with flight following that allow dispatchers on the ground to actually see up-to-the-minute locations, and that is provided to the dispatchers to help really facilitate quick moving resources and aircraft. Talk a little bit about that flight following program.
Yeah, the flight following program, it's called AFF, or Automated Flight Following. And so each of our aircraft, when they take off, the base is checked to make sure that AFF system is functional. And what it does is every 30 seconds, it sends out a signal to a satellite with the aircraft's location, its airspeed, its altitude, and heading, which direction it's going. And it sends that information, and it actually can be displayed on a map at the dispatch centers or at the air tanker base. And it's twofold. One, it gives the dispatchers a little bit more spatial awareness as far as where the aircraft are, what's going on. But it's primarily a safety tool that if we have an aircraft that has a problem and it does go down off airport somewhere, we've got a location within where the last 30-second ping is where that aircraft and pilot will be.
Yeah, perfect, Dennis. Well, we know you have a lot of work here getting these aircraft ready to go, so very much appreciate your time. And hopefully you've enjoyed this behind-the-scenes look at our air facility here at McClellan. Remember, fire season, though, is right around the corner already. 425 wildfires have burned here in California. And while the recent rain, even this weekend, has been great, the rain is not going to be enough to bring all the dead trees that have died due to the drought. In fact, over 29 million trees have died over the past 4 years, and there's no amount of rain that will bring those trees back. So this is the time where you should be doing your part to be ready while these mechanics are getting the aircraft ready for fire season. Make sure you have that 100 feet of defensible space. For more information on how you can be prepared, visit our website at readyforwildfire.org. That's the latest to hear from our air facility, Air Aviation Management Unit in Sacramento at McClellan Air Park. I'm Daniel Berlant. Have a fire safe day.